So, yeah, getting this thing started, man. What is it that you do online exactly? Like, how would you describe that? And why do you do it?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, well, what I do is I share or shed clarity in the spiritual, more like the enlightenment, awakening, non-dual scene. And that's what I see. I see that there's a lot of confusion out there, and that was my journey. That was my search. Was really a search for clarity more than anything else.
Hmm.
I can say more about what caused that in the first place later, but yeah, so that's what I'm trying to do. Online, just shed that clarity, give some insights that can help people feel more relieved. Oh,
Yeah.
like something clicks and it's like, oh, I now see this clearly. It's like a weight is lifted because usually there's like a false belief that's sitting heavily on the person, and sometimes clarity just shines it away, sort of.
Hmm.
Um, but really the magic really happens in my one-on-ones. And so because then when a person comes and I can address them personally, it's a different ball game. It can be so it not even compares. You can't compare how much more transformative it is than a general YouTube video. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. Yeah, I believe that for sure. I think Ramana Maharshi actually said that, and I've mentioned this in previous videos as well, that there's no like cookie cutter explanation to this whole non-dual perspective per se. It is kind of pertained to the individual, the teacher to
I
student relationship.
I so agree with that because it's the level where they're at. You say different things to different people.
Yeah.
I'm just not the kind of guide who will just like say the same thing over and over to everyone. My
Hmm.
sessions are like, if you were to witness them, you would be like, whoa, they're like a whole rainbow of colors. They're
Hmm.
very it's what
Hmm.
the person needs. It's not about a dogma that I have to give them. I don't have like, here is like you said, like a cookie cutter explanation. Like, here's the way it is, and that's it. It's like, where are you at? What's blocking you? Where are you stuck? How, what information can I give you to help remove that? What can we look at? It could be completely, every session could be completely different, I mean,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. That's the way, man. So you mentioned clarity. What exactly are you enabling others to see in this clarity? Maybe you can speak for yourself. Like what did you come to see, and what do you also allow others to see? Because when I think of clarity, I think like of polishing a window, or maybe polishing a mirror and something becomes clear. So what
Yeah.
are you making clear?
Well, I think the big questions, which are, who am I and what is this?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the who am I is is the most essential question. Um, and what is this? When I say about what is this, I mean, how does it work? Because you see, this is one place where I like to shed clarity, is that a lot of non-duality talk is talking about either emphasizing that there's no one here, or that what you are is being or awareness, but or consciousness, or whatever word you want to call it. But I don't see many also emphasizing that being isn't just being, it's creating
Mm-hmm.
constantly. You can't turn it off. There's no off button to it. And
Yeah.
so for me, like, I know that, like, along the path, it was a lot like law of attraction was sort of like this entry level teaching. And then when you get to non-duality, it's like, now you're serious, that you're not doing that silly ego stuff. But when you, I don't know, mature to a certain level, and then you hear that again, you're like, oh, it's not, you don't even have to listen to it as something prescriptive. It's rather descriptive, in fact. It's just how it works. The way I see it is, consciousness is focusing through what we call the mind, which is just thought. Thought is like this focusing, or it directs the focus. It's a focusing mechanism. And through the focus, what you focus on, you get more of. right? So
Yeah.
you're always create consciousness isn't just being like a static thing. It's constantly creating, and that's, you know, why also change is constant, because it's not like what is isn't just sitting here like stale and stagnant. It's vibrating, it's alive, it's fresh, and every moment it's awaiting your direction, where to go, where to go. And where you decide to focus is where it'll go. It's what you'll feel, and it's what you'll create more of. It's what you'll see more of.
Mm.
You know, so it's like you're sending, like A Course in Miracles says, you're sending your senses out to find what you've told them to go find. You know, so you find what you're looking for. Your eyes are reporting back to you what you were looking for. You know, if a person is saying, you know, life sucks and all of that, they're sending their senses to find that. They'll find it. They'll find all the evidence, and then they'll come to you and say, you see, life sucks. Here's the proof. And it's like, it's the proof that you created. It's not out there solidly, objectively existing in that sense. It's all, for me, it's all existing, but you chose to tune into that frequency. So that's what you're getting.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's good, man. I like that. You can't turn off creation. That's good.
Because you're always focusing on something somewhere. Can you turn off focus? Even if you're just being, you're focused on being. The
Yeah.
focus is just focused on just being, on just now, just is.
Yeah. I like that, man. Hmm.
Mhm.
So do you feel as though there is, in this creative aspect as a human being, there is a certain orientation toward creation? And even though we have the free will to be able to create whatever we want, do you believe that the clarity that you spoke of enables one to see a sort of um, alignment in their creation to something greater than their wants and needs of the body? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot packed up in that. I probably won't remember it all in my answer, but the point that's coming for me to say is that really clarity is sort of it's empowerment. Like
Yeah.
if you're not clear, if you're confused, you can't quite be empowered because you're confused. You're in a fog. You're not at the creator's seat. You're the wind is blowing you somewhere, or you're crashing under the wave. You're not surfing. You're not clear and above it, and you know, in that sense. Um, so okay, yeah. Now you have to remind me of the question.
So let me just summarize it. When it becomes clear that what we are is a sort of creative element,
Mm. Yeah,
is there a direction in that creation?
I love that question. Yeah. So for me, again, this is going to change for every person, depending on where they're at. Again, there'll be more egoic tendencies, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
you know, I want things outside. I want to be recognized. I want stuff, and there's no judgment on that. That's totally cool, man. Fine. It's just that there's a certain point of maturity where it's like seeing that nothing is going to satisfy you. There's no treasure outside of you that will give you the real treasure, which is what you already are.
Mm-hmm.
And so the seeking outside kind of stops with that. It's like you stop leaving home. You are home, not as in like you are in a place called home. Like home is you, your being, your very beingness. It's not in time, right? So it's you realize that satisfaction is what you are rather than seeking it constantly outside of you. So oddly, where being and becoming, or being and creating sort of merge, is it's a very, you know, our society is very masculine, like in the sense of like produce, achieve, attain. It's like doing, a lot of doing, right?
Yeah.
Oddly, when you just rest as yourself, capital S, or just rest in being, or whatever you want to call that in religious terms, rest in God, or when you just rest, it's like you're just, the flow just is so naturally taking you.
Mm-hmm.
So becoming takes care of itself, creating takes care of itself. So you don't necessarily have to control the direction so much. You just rest. You just sit at home.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah, you
everything kind of falls in place around you.
yeah, and you don't necessarily mean rest as in inaction. You don't literally mean sitting at home as in sitting on the couch.
Not at all. No.
Yeah. If anything, it actually seems to be quite the opposite, right? It seems to seems to, from my personal experience and others that I've witnessed, it creates a sense of action and gumption in one's action to be the creator and create alongside the great creator with a capital C, almost become the paintbrush of God in a way. But yeah, it's like you said, it's effortless. It seems to be like you said, you just kind of get taken into the current of God, and then you just get swept away. And in that way, I feel as though is the only way. And what I mean by the only way, as in, it seems like the only way to find some kind of semblance of peace in this life, some kind of semblance of, I guess, happiness, for lack of a better word. But do you know what I mean? Like, it seems to be like once you find this current, this in the river of life, you realize that it's, for me personally speaking, it seems as though in the past I had misplaced priorities on where to find this happiness and find this peace,
Right.
when really it was never on the outside. It was always, like you said, the treasure was always within all along, and I just had to just take a step back and just breathe, man. Just realize that, where I'm at, and just kind of like focus in on really what's important. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah, because when we give power to other things, when we make them so important, it's odd. It's like if you're not resting in being, if you're not, there's no way to really say this, but I guess attending to who you really are or to what you really are. If you're not
Mm-hmm.
attending to that, that means something else is more valued. So you,
Yeah.
you kind of stepped outside yourself for a moment. And that sometimes you step outside yourself for experiences that feel really good, very pleasurable. But when that experience ends, you're off center. You
Yeah.
you're disoriented. You don't know, so you need to come back. And I think that mastery sort of comes in when you can really stay. And it's not for me, it's not a path of discipline. My path is a path of exhaustion, of giving up.
Mm.
Like I've tried it all. I've tried it. Nothing satisfied. Then seeing that your being is where happiness is. It is happiness. And not only that, but the dream or the world or whatever you want to call it is more enjoyed because nothing is so important anymore.
Yeah.
It's like it's the weight is like drained out of it. And it's like, oh, I can just enjoy it. Nothing's really consequential here. Not really. Because you're absolutes.
Mm. Yeah. There's a weird irony in that. It's like once one lets go of the world, one can enjoy the world even
Yes,
more so.
exactly. That's
Hmm.
it. To the mind, it sounds like a paradox. It's just that's why I say when you just rest in being, you're in this vibration of joy and you're manifesting joy all around you in all kinds of ways. If it's your relationships, if it's of course there's challenges, there's hardships, there's family, there's people dying around you, there's sickness, there's all the worldly things, right? But again, when you know the truth or who we all are or whatever you want to call it, it's I don't deny anything. I don't deny the body, I don't deny a person's experience, I don't deny pain, I don't deny anything. It's just that I'm not consumed by it, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not consumed because on one level you probably realize that it's illusionary, right?
Yeah, you could say that. I don't, for some reason, I've never really thought about that. I don't seem to use that word that often
Mm.
because I guess I don't want to discount or diminish an experience or an appearance or something. But that it is that though. It is an appearance and it is temporary and it is fleeting and it does not scar your being or who you really are,
I like that. Yeah, it doesn't scar your being. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. I like that a lot, man. It doesn't scar who we really are.
Yeah.
Mm.
And who you really are is home. That you can never leave home. But these things have become like nice spiritual slogans or whatever. And
Yeah.
to me, it's not. It's like when you really realize that home is you as not as this mask, but as that boundless, nameless, whatever. Um, then you can go anywhere, and you don't have to be fixated on. You don't have to sit on a mountain or in a cave or be fixated on, because a lot of people, they get fixated on, oh, this is what I am, so all of this is lies, all of this is false, right?
Hmm.
And they turn their back to it. And I get those people in sessions. I get not only those people, I get their family members, if it's a wife or a friend or somebody, and they're like, the person is, you can't relate to them anymore. They're denying everything, like
Mm.
existence, everything is denied. So to me, that's just a lack of integration, because there comes a point where you see that the point isn't to deny the relative, because look what's happening. The absolute is playing as the relative.
Hmm.
And you see how they merge, and at the point where somebody's fixated on the absolute, they're still apart. There's the person's still here, and it's not, hasn't merged into what we just spoke about earlier, which is really the flow.
Yeah.
That being is not just sitting here trying so hard to not get consumed by the dream. When you really know that you're home, and that it's not a place or anything in time, you can go anywhere and be home,
Hmm.
right? So you don't have to defend the absolute, because anywhere you are, the absolute is. So you can play in the relative freely. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm 100%, man. That's the tricky part about this whole thing. It's like not taking. It's like not. How do I put this? Yeah, we're getting into the unspeakable territory at this point. It's like
Yeah.
not. It's like being unattached to being unattached. And what I mean by
Nice.
yeah, what I mean by that, it's like not even. It's like taking. A lot of people, they like to take the identity of no identity and use that as almost like a bypassing, but it's
Yes.
like don't even take the not identity of not identity as not an identity, if that makes sense. Like don't take,
Exactly.
even the absolute should not be attached to. There
Right.
is this seeming it's like a play between the absolute and the relative, which really isn't, but in terms of how we're speaking right now, it's kind of the only way that we can describe it. But the true, I guess, sage realizes that the absolute and the relative are just the same exact thing. They're just two poles. They're
There's
just
no
like,
dividing line. There's no place where
yeah,
one ends and the other begins or anything like that?
yeah, it's quite a paradox. Balancing the paradox, man. I guess that's really what it seems to be about. Um,
I'll also
yeah.
add to that, that also it depends on sort of the personality mask, on in terms of how this is lived, because there isn't a right, in my view, there isn't a right way to live it. Even when people ask me about my path, um, how did you get there? What did you do? And all that. And I don't mind divulging all the information. Like, I'll share everything. But then at the end, I always say, but your path is 100% unique.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean like, because the mind wants to take it as like, oh, so he did that to get there, so I have to do that too.
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
And it's unique not only in the way of getting to living this, um, but also once it's lived, like you'll see Ramana, for example, has sort of like temperament, or I don't know what to call it, was just like sort of like the classical Indian sage who sits and just sits and just
Yeah.
sits. And then he attracted all the stuff that they built around him and all of that. But then you got other people, or they're not people, but whatever. And their sort of temperament is way more fiery, way more active, way more let's go out and play. And there's everything in between those two as well. So
Mm-hmm.
the way enlightenment looks is what I'm getting at. You know.
Yeah. There is no, yeah, there is no way that enlightenment looks per se, but it's like there is maybe to a specific person that we would see as an individual. Um, but that doesn't mean it is for another person. Actually, it means that it is not for another person. It's specific to. It's hard to. It's like it's hard to describe, but when you know it, you know it. Like I feel like if I'm around somebody that is quote enlightened or they know or whatever label that you
And
want to put
enlightenment
on,
is a charged word, isn't it?
it's a what word?
It's a charged word.
It's
So
definitely charged. Yeah, that's for sure. But I guess for lack of a better word, it's like
right,
it's
right.
more about just the presence of somebody. And if
Mm.
they just know, I don't, it's hard to explain. It depends on the circumstances, depends on who the person is, what the karma is, you could say. But there is a certain, I don't know, there is something about somebody that has insight and understanding. It's hard to put my finger on, at least. And yeah, there might be different flavors. Depends. It
Yeah.
might look totally different in
I
other
agree with that
individuals,
though.
but there's
Yeah.
something that I can just tell, like a resonance in somebody.
Yeah.
And it might not even be like somebody I'm speaking to on video. It might even just be like from words from somebody, in a book or like from an old video, from a recorded video. There's just like authenticity
Mm.
and understanding from some wisdom, I guess, wisdom from somebody else, even if it's not even literal wisdom from words, just like somebody's their wise presence,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Is there's something so poignant to me about that. And
Mm.
yeah,
Yes.
it depends on the person. It depends what they do. It just depends. But there is like there is a even though there's not a I was gonna say there is a template, but not really. But there is something in the presence, like in the moment, in the I don't know how to
I
explain it,
think
man. I
I
think
think
you
I like
get
that
it.
you used the word authenticity.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
to me that word speaks volumes because I I think if we are listening deeply, not so much with the mind, but with our being, we can tell when somebody's speaking from the past, from knowledge, from book knowledge, from copying somebody else, or whether it's original. And original, I don't mean that it's never been said before, but it's fresh in the moment, even if it's been said a million times by a million different stages throughout a million years.
yeah.
It's
I
still
think
fresh and
a better
authentic.
word would be novel. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah,
novel.
yeah.
Yeah, authentic novelty.
And I think that to me is one of the main signs, because not that I go around giving really a caring at all who is who isn't, but to me, when I feel that resonance, I know that there is there is there's no imitation. Sorry about that. There's no
Okay.
imitation. I'll just turn the notification thing off. Um, and it's coming from within. It's not coming from mind. It's just coming from within.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I think at the end of the day, when you're really awake, this is a challenging thing for lots of people to hear. But and again, depending on levels of maturity on the path, I would watch who I'm saying it to. But basically, I think at the very end, you have to understand that you have to be completely alone.
mm,
Because what I mean by that is there can't be another person, guru, teaching concept sitting with you in your mind, because you're still following. You're
yeah,
still following something.
yeah.
And being my experience, at least, it follows it has no authority. It follows nothing. You know what I mean? It follows itself.
Mm, yeah,
Yeah.
wow. Hmm. So how would you describe this wavelength, this mindset? What is the so we described the different flavors of awakening or enlightenment, whatever you want to even describe it as. that doesn't even describe it, to be honest with you. But
Right.
we describe the different ways that it may appear and how one can become resident to this understanding. How would you describe the commonality of this understanding between these individuals that you may witness through, through a book, through a
Yeah,
video, through a conversation? What is the commonality? What is the sublimation of all of these, the understanding? Even though it may be different and the path may be different from one person to the other, which it definitely is, I still think there is a similarity in that, right?
absolutely.
So what would you describe is the similarity of insight between that,
I
between
would say, and again, a lot of people are really like picky with the words, and some words are not allowed in non-duality, and some words are not. I really don't care about the words. I couldn't care less.
mm-hmm.
For me, I would say it's they know themselves, not as a
Yeah.
body, not as a mind, not
Yeah.
as a personality. They know themselves as what is prior to all that, during all that, and after all that.
Mm.
That which doesn't change, that which doesn't come and go, that which is not in time, that which has no form. Um, and I think that people can use words differently today. Maybe awareness has become a more common word, but to me, it's being aware of being. It's just being aware of being. It's and once you're aware of being, you realize that being isn't confined by
Yeah.
anything.
Wow. Yeah.
That's the freedom that's sought, is to be unconfined. But any also technique that you look at, there's Gurdjieff's idea of self remembering. There's Headless Way, Douglas Harding, the see who's seeing. Um, there is endless meditations that are not just sitting meditations, but living meditations that help you. It's all about remembering the self in one way or another. There's abide in the I am. They're all the same. They're just different doors to the same no place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
But
in
but
that
but
no
I
place.
think
Go ahead.
I think what bothers a lot of seekers, and this is partly what's happening with some neo advaita today. I mean, not to badmouth anybody, but I get a lot of these people who watch that coming to me and going, I'm stuck. I'm stuck. I'm listening. I'm listening. I'm listening. I'm listening. I'm listening. I don't know what's happening. I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, because a lot. I'm not gonna, I can't unpack the whole thing, but one of the things that happen is you're being told constantly there's no path, but you're not experiencing that. It's not your experience, nor are you even anywhere. You're not in the vicinity of experiencing that. So what you're doing is you're denying yourself practice, because they tell you there's no practice to get to this. For someone who's experiencing it, that makes total sense. There's no way to this. How could you come to the home you've never left? But you either actually know that, or you pretend that to do that because some speaker said, and so now, okay, so I guess I can't practice. So now you don't know what to do because you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to not do anything, and you're nowhere. You're just, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a difference between knowing it on the surface level and then having the direct knowing
Oh,
within.
that's a radical difference.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because then it
Yeah.
just becomes the dogma of no dogma. So,
Exactly. And the identity of no identity.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's where it gets tricky. That's why, like, I think how we started this convo is there's no cookie cutter. I mean, and I
Exactly.
know
Yeah.
it may seem hypocritical because we both have YouTube channels
Mhm.
dedicated to certain generalizations around this topic, but I think, I don't know. I think with a keen eye, one can see past that, and I try to not. I try to say like, I don't know. I try to, in my own description of it, avoid the pitfalls of the neo advaita scene. You know what I mean? To say like, even
Yeah.
saying that there is no path, that doesn't imply that practice is futile, and things around that. I think that's where one can get caught, because it is true, right? At one point, one can see when you come to a certain direct realization that uh you really don't, and this may seem hypocritical. Let me just preface it with that. But you really don't need meditation. You don't need yoga. You don't need psychedelics. You really don't need any of the books, really. But in order to come to that, it's almost like, it seems like, from my personal experience, one has to have that practice to know that ultimately the guru lies within, right? The Holy Spirit is within us at all times. But it's almost like you need to, for me, reach that certain point through my practice to be able
I
to
love it.
realize that. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would also add to that that it's, for me, like I said, mine is the path of exhaustion, of giving up. It's the path of
Hmm.
failure. It's of having tried so many things and trying to do it right and trying to do it like the teacher said and trying to do it for as long as they said as I should do it. And all this trying, that's what ends, is
Yeah.
there's no trying, you know. But I can't say it would have never ended had I not tried. That's
Yeah.
the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a weird irony in that. Hmm.
Yeah. That's the thing that's hard it's hard for people to often hold paradoxes, and that often things are both and not either or.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
like the reason there isn't a path. It's both.
Yeah. Just because naturally our mind likes to have, this is it. This is it. This is the answer. This is what I need to do. When it's really, there is no such thing as this is it. Like there is no answer. Just our mind is just naturally binary. It's naturally dualistic. But
But to
the
answer
truth isn't.
this,
Go ahead.
well, the truth isn't right. And to answer this sort of in the mind is meaningless because it's not going to satisfy you. So
Mm-hmm.
you can know the truth really well in terms of like how to explain it up here, but it doesn't do anything for you. Your seeking won't end with that. You know,
Yeah. So
it's
let
dead.
me ask you this, man. I mean, I know we described there's no cookie cutter response to this whole thing and how to explain it. Um, but there is still value in guidance, right? There is still value at being able to be the finger pointing at the moon, as long as you don't claim the finger to be the moon, if that makes sense.
Yeah, good
Uh,
point.
so how, in your sessions, if you can kind of try and describe it,
Mm,
what do you, I know it's different, it pertains to
yeah.
each person, so, but like how does your guidance go about? Do you just have like a simple conversation with somebody, like, hey, what's going on today, man? Like, how you feeling? Like, how does this, is it really just in the moment? It
Wow.
depends. Like, how would you describe what your sessions are like, your one-on-one sessions?
I don't know if I could do it simply and concisely, but I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
So I think first thing, I don't know, it's I see them. I see where
Mm.
they are. I see what they're feeling. I see them. And when they feel seen, um, they feel understood. They feel there's a trust that happens.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? There's like a safety and a trust, and there's a relief also just at that. I even haven't even done much except just see them.
Mm-hmm.
There's like already a relief, like somebody understands where I'm at, what I'm experiencing. And part of the reason I could do that is because I made all of the mistakes,
Oh,
literally
yeah.
all of the possible mistakes on the
Mm-hmm.
path. Mistakes, I mean, I needed to go through them anyway. But so I understand them. And then depending on where they're at, because I've made all those mistakes, I can see it's like they're stuck on a certain level and they just don't know how to get out. I don't like the word level, but I just don't have any other way to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I just sort of it's very in the moment, and intuitively the guiding is guiding them from that fixation, from that place of stuckness or confusion. It's like shining a light of clarity on that. And that's the reason it could be different very much from session to session, is because each person's confusion could be very different.
Yeah.
Some are stuck like up here in, like, for example, okay, I'm awareness, but, and then this all looks like a dream to me, but I have no joy. I have no joy. I'm just
Mm.
like too detached. So how do I get you out of there? Where do you go from there? Some people are like, I've lost my motivation. What do I do now? Some people are, I mean, I don't know. It so varies from person to person.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are more towards the beginning. Some people are very advanced already.
Mm-hmm.
It varies.
I get
But what, the way I know it works is that every single time that a session ends, it ends with joy. It ends with a
mm,
smile. It ends with relief. It ends with happiness. It ends with satisfaction. It ends with, I'm so glad I called you. So
that's pretty powerful. Yeah.
it's very powerful. And that the thing is it's hard to convey to people like, gosh, I'm dying to shed clarity. That's my passion. I'm dying to shed clarity for you because I know you'll be happier. It'll feel the ease, you
Mm,
know? And so I'll be honest, and I have no shame in saying this, but the only reason I post on social media is well, not the only, but one of the main reasons is to hook. It
mm,
just is because I know I can help. So there's no shame in that. It's just how do I let you know that I can help you? Well, perhaps if I offer something valuable online, you'll see like, okay, I think this might provide the clarity that I'm interested in, you
mm,
know?
mm. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, trust. I think that's important. And it's interesting that you can establish this trust through a computer. You can do it through space and time, and you can establish this connection with seemingly a separate individual, seemingly, and you can do it through a computer screen or your phone screen or whatever it is. And I've come to realize that myself doing these talks, it's that locality really doesn't matter. And this whole idea of separation is even more drilled into my being once I have a true connection that is non-local. And I think you can probably attest to that, right? It's that really
Yeah.
space and time doesn't exist. Like true connection, a true loving, trusting connection that has no boundaries. There's boundaries like the space that I am in and the space that you're in, it's the same space.
It
And
is.
it's interesting, right?
It is, and it's a no space even in a sense.
Mm, mm-hmm.
And I would say that really, I mean, to see others is like part of what that is validating them wherever they are. It's this absence of judgment, this total validation of them exactly as they are, and more than that, it's this honoring and respecting of who they're expressing as and where they're at right now. And it's not like wherever they're at, there's this honor for, like, honestly, to be super honest, like anybody on the path, anybody who's doing this path, I gotta honor them just by the fact that they're on this path.
Mm.
Because this is not for the faint of heart. Like if you're on this path, I already applaud you.
Yeah. The thing is, we're all on the path, even if we know it or not.
True. True. Yeah.
But there is a difference between someone that knows this path and doesn't know the path. Even though we are all walking each other home, as Ram Dass would say, it's still like with a certain awareness is a little bit expedited.
Well,
You know?
yeah, I mean, all the things like the dark night of the soul, or feeling like you're faced with letting go of attachments or things like that. It's not easy. And then you still have to function in this world.
Yeah,
It wasn't easy for me. Let's put it that way.
it's definitely not easy. No, it's not easy,
Yeah.
but it's worth it. Um, yeah, it's definitely worth it because I think I said this already. There's no other way. One can find that there's really no other way to go about trying to find this so-called peace and happiness. The path is the path to a sense of just being okay, just feeling okay in this life, enjoying this life for what it is.
Mhm.
That's how I see it, at least. And there's no other path. I mean, we can try and walk other paths, that's for sure, because it's all the same path. We can try and pave our own way, but ultimately, um,
Yeah.
it's futile in the end. Like ultimately, one has to go within and unveil what one truly is in order to find that sense of peace, peace in the moment. And that's just personally speaking. I'm not trying to preach on what anybody should or shouldn't do, honestly. But from my personal experience, it doesn't seem to be any other way. Like I had to have this kind of moment or moments or experience of just questioning, like what is this? Who am I? Why does bad things seem to happen to me? The list goes on, but just the simple fact of self inquiry and just questioning what the hell it means to be a human being. To me, it seemed like there's no real other way to find a state of equanimity, I guess you could say. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. The way is the way. Do you I mean, I don't know what else to say, man. Do you see eventually a world where I guess everybody is on this wavelength? And I know that I said that we're all on this wavelength, whether we know it or not, but the wavelength of knowing that we're on the wavelength, of, of at least trying to identify what we are. And I guess that is in one way described in A Course in Miracles, right? I can't really quote any specific
Yeah.
thing, but I think in the book it says eventually we're all going to come back. We're all going to come back to God in one way or the other. So, I mean, do you see a world like that? Do you see like the earth and all human beings all being on this wavelength someday?
Well, so I would describe it this way. So we've never left God. So it's like having, will there be a point of overall, like aware, everyone having the awareness of that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, um, I think that's possible, but are we anywhere near there? Look, I'll say that the word awakening, I don't even know what it means anymore, because everybody says I've had an awakening. What do you mean? What does that mean?
Yeah.
Everybody has some different idea of what that means of having an awakening. Um, I do still think, forgive me for saying this, but there aren't so many who go all the way,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
all the way. And so to have a whole world where everybody is like that, I don't think we're anywhere near. But to have a world where, yes, people are awakening, becoming more aware, getting more empowered, you know, yes, that's a possibility. I mean, hard to say, but it's a possibility. I've been advocating that is the case, that there is an awakening in that sense, but I wouldn't go as far as to call that a mass enlightenment. I differentiate here in my answer between enlightenment and awakening. What
Mm.
people are calling awakening these days, yes, maybe that's happening. What I would consider enlightenment, not the people who are considering themselves awake are not necessarily enlightened.
Oh,
Oops, I said
how would
it.
you describe the difference in that? Like simply, how would you, if you could?
Do you do you know that you're the source? Do you really know that? Not intellectually. Do you know that? Like this not the word know is just so weak here, so I keep repeating
Yeah,
it
yeah.
to emphasize. But um, do you know that you're the origin, that you're not a product of anything, that actually you're not in the world, that the world is in you and is you? Do you really know that you're the source? Because it's again, to be alone, as I said, alone. I don't know how many are willing to go there. It's to be alone is to let go of everything, everything.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you are everything. So there's that paradox again.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, and I think what people are calling awakening is like, I mean, I use that word too. So, I don't. These just words, but um, I think there are a lot of people consider, I don't know, awakening is like being aware that we're sort of been very disempowered and it's time to take our power back.
Mm.
but not as the self, capital S, but more like as there's still an identification as a person, but now it's just going to be an empowered person.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Yeah.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and the way to this so-called enlightenment that doesn't really exist is a way to uh yeah, it's oh man, it's hard to describe, man. I'm getting to like I don't even want to talk about it. You know what I mean? You get to a certain point, it's like, do you watch should I even try? But
Because
yeah,
at the end of the day, I mean, we talk about enlightenment and all that, and it's like we're dangling a carrot a little
yeah.
bit. And at the same time, it's like you're already that. So that's the odd situation of speaking about this, and especially of teaching this. You're
Mm.
constantly in the paradox of let me guide you here to where you've never left. Odd situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, could you describe it as like knowing that there is a God, and not only is there a God, is that you are a part of this God. If you, for lack of a better word, I know that's definitely a charged term as well. So
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
very charged.
but I
Yeah.
mean, with the right understanding, one can come to understand what that means. And would you say that is the path? The pathless path is to realize that um, our being is a lot, I guess you could say, greater than what we thought it was, but it's not necessarily greater. It's actually less than at the same time, but it's less than like any of our humanly wants. And that is like, it's
Mm-hmm.
hard to explain, man. It's like that is the God essence. Like we're just innately God, and we try not to be. If I guess if that's what I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
trying getting at, but like the path to enlightenment is unveiling that we are, we always will be, and we always were this God essence, and we
Yeah.
got ourselves into this calamity at our own will, and the path to enlightenment is just kind of peeling the layers back in order for one to truly reside in that God consciousness, right? Would you say that if one could try and describe the path, it's that it's it's realizing that we are quite literally in this moment, me, you, everybody, everything, are a part of God. Um, and I know that doesn't do it justice, but it's. Would you say that's a somewhat apt description?
So the thing about so I would agree, but it's not complete. I would add. I
Mm-hmm.
would say we are a part of God, and each part is also the whole.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So each like here here is not just a part of consciousness, is all of consciousness, all of existence. I am the all. As Jesus said this in the Gospel of Thomas, I am the all. Split wood and you'll find me there. Open a rock or whatever, and you'll find me there. Yeah, I don't remember the exact quote, but something like that, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so all of it is here. All of existence is here. But at the same time, it's also a part of the whole. And again, this is where it's always both, and it's always a paradox. And the mind wants it clean and like cut. Okay, here I can put this in my cupboard in my mind. Okay, here's the truth of what enlightenment is. Okay, got it there, stored, lock the key. I know it now. But that doesn't do anything to
Mm.
know it. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
It's
knowing
to
that you can
be
never
it.
know it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like Socrates said, to know thyself is to know that you know nothing.
Well, or even that there's nothing to know. I mean, in that sense of just being isn't you don't what do you need to know to be? You already are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing is also I ask people, they're trying so hard, and I'm saying, what effort do you need to do to be? Nothing. And that's the tricky thing, because we're so doing oriented. Let me achieve this in the future. And it's like guiding is actually not pulling them forward, it's pulling them back,
Mm-hmm.
reeling them inwards
Yeah.
back to themselves. And that's what guiding is, by the way. To me, it's bringing you, or not you specifically, the general you, back to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about teaching you anything. The concepts are there just to, it's like Ramana said, he said it the best in this regard, where like it's a thorn to remove another thorn. You use a concept to undo other concepts. But eventually, when there's just being and you're alone, there's no concepts in that alone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you're alone and all one at the same time. So that's the you're the whole and you're the part.
Yeah, think of how alone is spelled. It's all
Exactly.
one.
That's what I was alluding to. Yeah.
It is peculiar in that sense, how it's spelled like that.
Interesting how languages. I speak
Mm.
Hebrew, and Hebrew has some amazing things that really connects beautifully.
Yeah, well, I feel like, well, Hebrew is a whole other animal from English, man. And I don't know Hebrew, but from what I've read about it, it just seems like it's very closely tied to the concepts that we're speaking of, just at a level with less words, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like more poignant, more precise, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there is something to that. That's right. Yeah.
Probably just because it's an older language, to be honest. There's less hubbub about it. You know, there's less of a mixture. It's just very close to the original conceptualization of language, of the utterings, of the energy of language. You know, it's just like I feel like the older a language is and the less edited per se it is, the closer it is to a sense of truth in the concepts, or closer to the resonance of the
Interesting. I think there's something to it, and I think Kabbalah talks about that in the 22 Hebrew letters and
hmm
the energy behind them, and it has to do with I don't you know what, I don't know enough to, and I don't want to disrespect that beautiful branch of knowledge, so I'll shut up about it. But yeah, there's some beautiful stuff connected to the letters and the numbers and all that stuff. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's language is it's powerful. Yeah, it's definitely a powerful thing to analyze language and the etymology of words and see how it all connects and see really what's behind the concepts of language and how, I mean, ultimately it's like it all comes from, first was the word, right? At first, it's
Yeah.
in one way or the other. You can see that all language, it's like, how do I put this, man? Hmm. I don't know how to explain it either, to be honest with you. But there is a certain, like, if you know how to study language, and especially languages like Hebrew or Sanskrit or Gurmukhi, there's a certain kind of resonance to those words that English or other modern languages don't hold. And I guess we can probably keep it at that.
Okay.
Rather than destroying the
Yeah.
ideas. Yeah, there's this certain specialty to these old ancient languages that our modern ones don't quite hold.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm. That's a whole other rabbit hole, though.
It's interesting though, that idea of first there was the word,
Mm,
in the beginning was the word, because first of all, where's the beginning?
yeah, right.
That's another thing in the Gospel of Thomas. They ask him about that, I think, where about the end, and asks them, "Have you found the beginning that you're asking about the end?" Alluding to there is none, there is no beginning or end, and I think throughout it all, what's interesting is the word is creative, but before the word is actually silence. So
mm,
maybe the word is the beginning. It's the beginning of creating something out of the silence. But before the word is silence, and after and during, it's always.
mm. Yeah, and I think what the word is stands for is like it's almost like information, right? Not
Mhm.
necessarily the
Yeah,
word as in the symbolic form, but like from that silence comes a sort of like code in a way. It's like this codified, God is codified in the word,
Mhm.
and it transforms through time. But with a keen eye, one can see the transmission, through language. One can kind of like the all one statement alone. Like you have to like analyze like where that came from, and there's so much of that in
there is.
in English, but especially probably in Hebrew, right? There's so much of that, like how where this all like language stems from, man. It's like what the information is that is goes beyond the base level meaning, and I guess um I've heard this before. Like if you analyze, yeah, like gematria, like if you analyze the Old Testament in Hebrew and you see like the codified form of it in the form of numbers, it's like a totally different meaning than what
Yeah.
the story of the Old Testament is, and it's like supposedly it's supposedly like a documentation of time somehow. It's almost like the Akashic records, and I'm like, what? that
Have you
that
seen
makes a lot
the
more sense, as in like it transcends the beginning and the end. You know what I mean? If it is like just if at first was the word, I'm kind of losing myself here, but I think you can understand what I'm saying. It's like if if Hebrew is this codified, if the Old Testament is like codified time, it's like we somehow took time and codified it in language in a in it's
wow.
in some kind of mathematical form, but it's in some kind of code that
Yeah.
one has to look at it with in the right.
Dude, I have to ask you, have
Yeah,
you seen the movie Pi? It's
I've
old
heard
by
about it. I've heard about it. I
this
haven't
like
seen it though.
this guy, he just goes into all that. He starts studying it all. He kind of loses his mind, but man, yeah, yeah. I mean, you can go into that. I mean, I've lived in Israel. I've seen people go into the Kabbalistic, or you say gematry, we say gematria in Hebrew. Yeah, go into that, and it's a fascinating world, but it's also one that I would advise not to get lost in. Don't lose yourself.
Hmm.
People go get intoxicated with things and forget that this is that they're the treasure. This is fun. This is fun to explore.
Yeah.
Here's all the information. Here's all the codes. I'm looking at it right now.
Hmm.
It's marvelous, and we can marvel at it, but at the same time, which is marveling at yourself, but at the same time, not to get lost in it, like identified.
Yep.
Yeah.
Amen to that, man. Yeah, that's the key. I think to any kind of rabbit hole one wants to go down, as long as one doesn't take that as the so-called truth, even
Yeah.
though
The
it may be very
absolute.
tempting. You know, it may be
Yeah.
tempting to go and get lost in the code of gematria, and maybe it's somehow time is codified in the Hebrew form, right? That may be very tempting, but ultimately, like you said, it's just like a form of entertainment. At the end of the day, the code is right here. The code is right here and
Yes.
now. There's really
Yeah.
there's nothing that one needs to do, needs to read, needs to be, needs to like just really just yeah, there's nothing that we need other than maybe food and water. But then even then, it's like does being like, yeah, you need food and water to survive in this body, but I guess you
Well,
can
the
even,
body needs food and water. You
yeah,
don't actually need it. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like you, yeah, you don't need it. The true you, the true I, the true, I guess, self doesn't necessarily need it. With one can come to find that what we need is really absolutely nothing at all.
Just ourselves. Just
Yeah.
ourselves. That's why one of my favorite quotes is by Meister Eckhart, where he says, I am what I wanted, and I want what I am."
Hmm.
Yeah.
I like that, man.
When you realize, to me, when I realize that I'm the treasure, I don't have to, I don't want to leave myself. I fall in love with that capital S self, right? With existence, with being, with what you call God.
Hmm.
I fall in love with that. And from there, I approach the world. And to put it in like really down to earth terms, I just call that being centered
Yeah.
or grounded.
Yeah.
That's what I mean when I say be centered. But it's interesting because there's paths like of devotion where you go really high and you get really high on that love. And then there's paths like Zen where you're more relaxed, right? And you're just
Hmm.
like, or you're Zen, as we say, like nothing phases you or whatever. And it's interesting to be both, to be able to feel so fully, yet not lose your center as you do that.
Hmm.
That to me is the best of both worlds. I think it was, I don't know, maybe it was Osho who was talking about how that sort of like it's this relaxed alertness, which sounds like again another paradox or contradiction because relaxed but alert.
Yeah. I like that. Hmm. Sounds like balance. Might be another word to use. True balance in one's being.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
the interesting thing is I think part of the awakening that's happening now is people are being more aware that everything is energy and that to feel centered or to feel good, you need to have balance, right? So some people will talk about it as yin yang balance. Some people will talk about it as balance between the elements. Oh, you're too fiery, you need some water, you know. And I think that's a really good stage to lead you deeper within. Like I said, it's not the end, but it's a great stage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's not
Because
the
it's
end.
not the place where you don't need anything that you were just alluding to a moment ago. It's not that. It's not that. Sometimes I call it ultimate carelessness, which it can sound like cold, but it's not cold. It's just, I mean, if nothing could happen to you, you wouldn't care so much. If you didn't think your happiness was in an outcome, you wouldn't
Mm.
care so much.
Mm-hmm.
There's a carelessness to the self, and it's light, it's lightness. Um, so what I'm saying is that balance thing is great, but it's not yet that, because that is that even without needing balance. Doesn't need any it doesn't even need happiness, because the moment it tells itself it needs happiness, then it leaves itself.
Yeah.
Do you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's peculiar. Hmm.
Yeah.
I know what you mean, though. Mm. I mean, would you also say, I mean, starting to wrap this thing up,
Sure.
it kind of, this this mindset of no mindset, this kind of identity of no identity, this truly indescribable uh, ness to oneself, um, leads one to a sense of invulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately leads one to a sense of, in a way, transcending our demise, like transcending the bodily death. Because I think that,
That's right.
right, doesn't that, that's in the back of every person's head, right? I feel like that's where every fear comes from, is that we're going to lose everything when we die, like we're going to lose this experience. But would you say
Yeah.
this, the ultimate insight that one can come to is that it's like the saying, die before you die, right? I think that's a popular Buddhist saying. So would you say like the ultimate insight is like there's nothing to lose, right?
You can't lose yourself. That would be the
Yeah.
ultimate insight for me. That's where I said before, you are home. You can't leave home. You can
Yeah.
imagine, you can think you did, but you can't actually do it. It's like the dreamer gets so identified with the dream character that forgets that, oh shit, I'm the one dreaming. Nothing's ever happened to me. To
Mm-hmm.
me, nothing ever happens. Ever, ever. It can't.
Mm-hmm.
It's just in a dream. It's just, and then when I think I'm the dream character and I think all these things are happening to me, and now I'm trying to heal my scars and heal my wounds and all of that, where really I'm already whole and complete because I'm the dreamer.
Yeah. No matter what.
No matter
That's the
what.
powerful thing. No matter what.
Like that. Yeah. No matter what. That is the powerful thing. Yes. Very powerful.
Yeah, even think of those words too.
Absolute, you know?
Yeah. They absolutely, no matter what. And think of those words, right? No matter, like the matter. No
Yeah.
matter what. Like anything that happens in matter, no matter what. Like,
Right.
yeah. It's
But I
true,
would
man.
say that in the integrated view, which I talk about also in my videos, that I refrain from saying nothing matters at all, like in the absolute way, because not saying that it's not true, but because you know what, there is humanness here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna pretend like if you were to burn my hand, I'd be like, oh, doesn't matter. Doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter. Doesn't affect me. No, sure, there is a part of me that's witnessing that, or whatever you want to call that. Again, can't really describe that. That is untouched by it. That will live. That will be. It was before it. It's during it, and it will be after. That absoluteness. But the Daniel side of me is going to scream like a baby.
Yeah, yeah.
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 So
Yeah.
I'm not trying to prove it's does it, because that becomes another identity. Let me prove how unaffected I am. Let me go sit in the snow and show that I don't get cold. And I mean, and it's like before.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Yeah.
nothing. Being doesn't need to prove anything nor improve anything.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah, the show must go on, right?
Yeah, it does whether you want it to or not. There's
Mm-hmm.
always this thing, you know. It just goes on and on. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And on that note, honestly, I think we can probably wrap this up.
Yeah, that feels complete to me.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I don't know. You got anything else to say? You want to keep it at that?
Honestly, I think we hit the nail on the head with it, and it's feels done.
Yeah, it feels done yet not done. The show must go on, right?
You see, beautiful. That's always the paradox, isn't it? It's done yet never done. It's
Hmm.
beautiful. I love it. I love it so much. Yeah.
For sure, man. Well, I appreciate your time, effort, wisdom. Thanks for coming on here and speaking with me. I think this was awesome.
I
Um,
enjoyed it a lot, man. This was great.
yeah, yeah. Um, of course, man. I don't know. Keep on doing your thing. Wish you all the best. I'll link everything down in the description for anybody that's watching this in the future, and keep on keeping on.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Peace and love. Peace and love, everybody.